Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the last session of the day. Hope I won't keep you too long. And my portfolio is turbulence and transition, as you see there. Hope my ride will not be turbulent. I promise it will be smooth. And people wonder about this title, actually, turbulence and transition, how these two words are combined together. In a naive look up these dictionary terms, turbulence and transition, independently. Turbulence, everybody experiences in life, and sometimes in the flight you get jolted. So that is the turbulence. Of course, that turbulence has something to do with the portfolio theme we are talking about today too, in fluid dynamics. And transition somehow got coupled with this because of various portfolio names AFOs are had in this particular theme area, fluid dynamics and aerothermodynamics, etc. Transition refers to the transition of the flow from laminar to turbulent. That's what the term is. So it simply means change or conversion, etc. And turbulence means high momentum convection. If you understand that term in fluid mechanics, convection means convective current, like a flow. And the momentum turnover is very high. And also it is variation of high variation of velocity and pressure at a given point in the flow. So that's why the turbulence term. And of course, many are familiar with this turbulence. Once the Nobel laureate Richard Feynman talked about turbulence, and he said it's the most important unsolved problem of classical physics. So that's the background. As David introduced, I'm Rangasamy Ponnappan. I came to AFOS 6 years ago as overseas program officer, and then came to the headquarters. Before then, I was bench scientist at Wright-Patterson. Okay, my outline today is simple, with a simple introduction of the sub-areas I'm going to address and the scientific importance and the Air Force capability, how we are going to revolutionize with this portfolio, and the description of the portfolio as such for investment strategy, and then moving on to some project examples. I have about 7 projects in this portfolio, and then summarize. And now, this past April, I was given the opportunity to look at this new portfolio. Actually, this was a divided portfolio from Dr. John Smisher in the audience. He took over the department chair position, and he could not handle a big portfolio, so the organization decided to split into 2, and the turbulence and transition was born out of the aerothermodynamics he has been holding for many years. And what you see here on the left is John's portfolio addressing the aerothermodynamics with the fundamental internal energy mode dynamics aspects. And whereas the turbulence and transition is kind of more fluids. In fact, this has connection with the hypersonics, even though heavily supplying the science-based foundation for the hypersonics programs. But we don't do anything in hypersonics. It's all fluid we handle. So just because it is Mach number 5 and above, so we call it hypersonics. Anyway, this is the science which feeds into the hypersonic science. And I am attached with the Dr. Stargell's division, Dynamical Systems and Controls division. I didn't know why it was not attached to the other division, but that is organizational trick, I guess. Key sub-areas are kind of 3, as you see, these 3 bullets there. Boundary layer physics, foundations of turbulence, jet noise. So these are the sub-areas categorized for this portfolio with sub-areas as I listed here. Mainly the boundary layer physics addresses the boundary layer transition from laminar to turbulent, as I explained earlier, and some quiet tunnel experiments and flight experiments included. And foundations of turbulence again goes down to analyzing it with the surface conditions of the flow surfaces like roughness effects and some gas injection effects, etc. And the third sub-area is the jet noise, which is also a very important topic for Navy as well as Air Force. With all these high efficiency jets, we create unpleasant, unhealthy noise for community, particularly the air crew and people operating on the bases or carrier ship deck. So that is becoming more and more important, and we have some programs on that. And along with these sub-areas, I need to mention 4 of the other organizational tools we use to promote this research, particularly the National Hypersonic Science Center, and then I will have few slides as I go on, and the foundational research plan. This is another plan we use across the portfolios in the Air Force or program offices, and also supported by the Joint Technology Office run by the DoD and high-fire programs, which we have a good connection with the TDs, particularly the RQ and other directorates. Now, the scientific importance, as you see here, this chart illustrates everything of aerodynamics. When you throw something in the air and want it to fly at Mach 6 or Mach 8, what is the forces and environment it will encounter? It's clearly illustrated there, starting from the stagnation point to the transitional boundary layers to the separation, the lift and the angle of attack, everything comes into play. And all these are important to study because we have to make the vehicle faster, lighter, and efficient, so, and also controllable. And the importance, as I shown below, high-speed aerodynamics capability is our Air Force main mission, and accurate and reliable methods. We have to create tools to analyze these aerodynamic bodies, and then simulation tools. I think we have to keep doing that until our beam energy folks can help us. Already it is coming into work, but still the conventional weapon system depends upon aerodynamic vehicles. And when we talk about the potential revolutionized capabilities, we have to kind of make this vehicle lighter and dynamically stable, and have increased range for reachability, particularly to deliver weapons. And main problem with these fast-moving vehicles are the skin friction drag, which consumes a lot of fuel and becomes inefficient. And on top of that, the thermal protection system has to be lighter too. You know, if you design it improperly, you will pay a penalty on that direction. So all these support facilities and numerical tools and are very important. And this schematic John developed, and I kind of like this to illustrate the example, how to reach a geographically certain point in a certain given time. For example, if you are flying at 500 nautical miles per hour speed, that's probably less than close to half Mach number. Mach number is the velocity of sound. So it takes 15 minutes to kind of cover the mid-Atlantic region, whereas if you fly at Mach 6, you can go to the Rockies, and at the same speed you can reach the West Coast by 23 minutes. So that's the range we can think of in anywhere geographically in the globe you want to reach a certain place to deliver your weapon or whatever mission you need to do. And with all these vehicles, conventional airplanes and the exotic vehicles we come across in our research arena, like HT, DARPA vehicle and the X-51s, you might have heard these stories on that. So they're all experimental, and we are still developing those. And whatever political strategy we may be coming across, like Pivot to Pacific or anti-access area denial threat environment, so we require these high-speed capabilities. That's the bottom line. And moving along to the next portfolio sub-areas, as I told earlier, kind of given a little bit more description about the boundary layer physics, which covers the receptivity factors, important study aspect of the boundary layer transition studies. And foundations of turbulence kind of includes the roughness studies, and jet noise is definitely an important area. This portfolio is looking at, and including the jet crackle. There is a difference between the jet noise and jet crackle. They are looking at these also. And the foundational research plan has 8 groups, as I have listed here. They are again comes out of the portfolio themes of various program offices here, like combustion and aerothermodynamics and multi-scales and lifing. So various program officers from Dr. Chiping Lee to Dr. Ali Sair and Dr. Ravi Chona, they're all helping me in kind of planning this foundational research plan. I have a couple of more slides later on in this talk. And before going into the portfolio efforts I'm supporting, I want to kind of give you the view of the landscape, science landscape involved in this boundary layer flow, particularly the external flow, how the laminar to turbulent transition flow is studied. You know, this is the landscape. What you see, the leading edge of the flow here, we have shown a roughness element, and then some disturbances coming into the boundary layer. See, this is the external surface. Imagine the surface of the flying vehicle, and then the boundary layer builds over the surface like this. Initially it goes smooth, and then transitions certain region, the disturbance is developing into a turbulence. Beyond this point it becomes completely turbulent. So the main disturbance factors are the key to understand the turbulence physics happening in that. Sometimes the disturbances suddenly make the boundary layer transition into turbulence without even having a transition region. So that's what called the bypass region is. So just to give you an understanding of how this transition flow is modeled and looked at. Before we go into the various projects, I want to kind of give the advantage of what is all this about, you know. Particularly when a flying aircraft, you know, we want to have the maximum fuel efficiency, less drag, a smooth flow. As illustrated in this little airplane model here, there was a study conducted by the Texas A&M University. They did the wing study and found out 22% of the overall wing drag is can be reduced if it is fully laminar. So that much potential is there, but we cannot have the whole wing laminar also, because that may be unstable. Certain times the turbulence can creep in suddenly, and then you may lose the controllability. That's why it's not wise to have completely laminar. No matter how smooth you keep the wing surfaces, it will be turbulent. And the fear of separation is also there. So to some extent we can reduce the drag by properly designing the wing, by balancing the lift and drag effects. So the main purpose is to reduce the skin friction and then to reduce the thermal loads. So that is the bottom line of the design goal here for any science to help in this direction. And as you see in the right side diagram, what is illustrated is a boost glide trajectory for a re-entry vehicle or a hypersonic vehicle. As you see the pulse here, just the sharp rise and then fall, the estimated amount of drag is 6 times. Sometimes it can even be 1 order of magnitude higher heating rate compared to the normal level flow. So that is the impact we are against in designing hypersonic vehicles. So in every regime and every type of aircraft we have advantages, but mainly when we go for hypersonics, high-speed vehicles, that is what we are up against. And this chart again, something about investment strategy we are struggling with. And again, John assembled this earlier, and I like this chart. The kind of roller coaster funding profile is not very very good for our portfolio growth and science advancement. So the volatile history, depending upon the national big programs like starting from in the 60s asset prime to shuttle to X-43 to HIFIRE to X-51 recent one, and now I think DARPA is thinking of some other hypersonic vehicle, I was told, but I don't know the details. But all we need is for AFOSR basic mission, we need to have some foundational research base, so that we are comfortable, and then supporting some few PIs and carry on the science further without any interruption. So that's what we are looking for. With uncertain funding situations, that becomes very difficult. So now this portfolio is split now for, I should have a growth for this portfolio. So, that is a situation with respect to funding. But right now it's looking comfortable. Only thing is we are not able to make new starts. Probably down the road we should be able to gain that advantage also. And the National Hypersonic Science Center, I will skip through fast because this past year NASA pulled out the $1 million support they did. Luckily, 4 years we successfully had that program, and last year the money was pulled out. So that program is closed now. And sure, I mean, the government, NASA and Air Force are included. We evaluated that program after 4 years last summer and came up with some observations. The main observation was increased emphasis on experimental work should be considered. See, the team, after studying these 4 years of progress, found that the experimental work should get more attention, so which is a very valid recommendation and observation. So, and also they observed the theoretical analysis, particularly the direct numerical simulation, and also simulation-wise they are better off and leading the research right now. So, and many graduate students could not be funded in the tail end of that program. That was the downside. And the Science Center again had so many factors, as you see here, so many PIs working in various areas, and those probably have to be continued one way or the other down the road. And they generated a lot of enablers like spatial DNS, direct numerical simulation, and various stability theory concepts, quiet tunnel tests, etc. And this is the foundational research plan I mentioned about. I will skip through this. And these are the milestone kind of roadmap we established for near term, mid-term, and far term. And all the 8 groups are working on similar charts about the roadmaps. Now, moving along to the projects, so these are the, I have 2 examples of each sub-area I showed earlier. This is the lab LRIR program with Dr. Roger Kimmel. He kind of studies the boundary layer transition very closely, though he is in the 6263 world, but he is the link with us and to the experimental side and the basic science. And the bottom line is to characterize all these hypersonic high-speed vehicles for flow characterization, particularly where the boundary layer transitions. That is a critical point in the DNS, direct numerical simulation, or large eddy simulation. You have to predict exactly where the flow separates or transition from laminar to turbulent. For example, if you have to understand from the nose tip somewhere along here, the thing separates, then you can calculate aerodynamically what will be the drag and how you will stabilize the vehicle, etc. So that's why it needs analysis, and then wind tunnel test, and then thirdly the flight test. So if you can afford all those, that is the complete mission. You can fully understand a vehicle. So this particular experiment Roger did wind tunnel test in Purdue as well as Wright-Patt, and then he flew the high fire version also. So he has good results and still studying further aspects of this study. And one of those study results given here in two forms. One on the left side, the colored picture is, the blue color picture is the temperature sensitive paint version done in quiet tunnel as well as noisy tunnel. You know, for those who are not familiar with quiet and noisy tunnel, the quiet tunnel means there is no wall related boundary layer noise affecting your test object. That is what the quietness is. If you simply designed a tunnel, just a tube, and put this object in and then flow Mach 6 flow, then all kinds of noises will disturb your boundary layer of the test object. So that's what the quiet tunnel means. So, but they conducted to understand the both the aspects, quiet as well as noisy. As you see, the noisy tunnel, the flow could not go beyond, I'm sorry, 4.9 million Reynolds number, whereas in quiet version it went much higher Reynolds number. Similarly for this one, and these are the oil flow tests. They apply oil and then form the picture the streamline. What you see there, like ribs, they are all the vortex cross flow vortices. They call stationary as well as moving cross flows. So there's a lot of study involved, and then Roger is making good progress on that thing and is still continuing. And on the right, what you see is the high fire 1 test results, where the wind tunnel test is compared with the experimental results here. So they're similar, but there is still a lot of difference here due to some cooling effect of the actual flight compared to the wind tunnel test. And this is another comparison of the simulation. Last track is the Langley Research Center's code of the numerical code, and the blue points illustrate represent that curve, whereas the experiment, the linear theory applies only to a certain Reynolds number. If the Reynolds number goes high, then the linear theory fails. So that's what is happening in both the wave angle as well as the velocity diagrams. And of course they have they are still more to do, particularly they are going to refly this year sometime. April is uncertain, he said, and November he may have another test, so we will look for more results from that. And this is this experiment is by Professor Snyder in Purdue University. He owns and operates the Purdue Tunnel. Air Force and Boeing paid money to build those tunnels, and he's doing really tons of experiment, and many students really doing great work in Purdue. And this particular experiment, he studied the roughness. If you see this nose tip is missing, only this portion where they have applied some roughness elements by epoxy. So they study the effect of that roughness element on the flow. and then observe the transition. So this is the picture of the transition, and thereby they are characterizing the particular cone and the flow models. And I have to move fast because of my time is consuming. And this is again Professor Snyder's experiment, another straight cone with roughness. As you see here, he tested three varieties: smooth paint, and then rough paint. Another one is nail polish. I don't know how he picked nail polish to create roughness, but it worked for him anyway. So the y-axis is the heat transfer, and then the x is the azimuthal angle. When you have the 360 cone, you have 120 degrees is where he is monitoring this ray, and when he plots the graph for these three paint version, different characteristics of this heat transfer. Particularly the rough paint is oscillating too much, so that means indicating the instability in the flow. But the same observation he could not repeat on the other side, so power spectral density, because the traveling wave is behaving. This again, cross flow, stationary versus traveling wave. There are two kinds. The waves appear stationary or moving. So he has inconsistent observations. So he's still looking into this. And another interesting experiment Purdue does is depositing laser energy just as a pulse on the upstream of the flow, and then once it hits the cone, the flow behavior is mapped, and the wave packets are studied and plotted here. So one version is the pressure ratio with respect to time at various locations along the cone, and another one is same plot for the nose tip radius. Just nose tip radius change affects the flow, and again that is compared with the computed n, that's called the amplification factor for the wave amplification, which is a scale of where the boundary layer transition happens. And there is some difficulty in matching these computed one versus the experimental one. They are analyzing that effects also. And moving on to another experiment I wanted to illustrate here is how the boundary layer can be played with by various techniques. The researchers come up with endless ideas, and one of them is CO2 injection, the carbon dioxide injection, where the energy can be absorbed or desorbed depending upon the molecular characteristics of this gas. They found out CO2 has a very good effect in influencing the boundary layer transition. So this Caltech professor Shepard has done this experiment. I think you might have seen this result before when John probably presented in the past reviews. And the results are illustrated here for various gas from air to fully 100% CO2, or a mixture, or nitrogen only. So the CO2 data points lie up here because that shows the delayed transition. This is the highest point. I mean, the boundary layer separation is way later. In other words, that's the best result with CO2. And foundations of turbulence, we have a couple of projects running. I mean, it's almost coming to an end. This PI is Christensen from University of Illinois, studying the roughness. For example, the actual roughness of like turbine blades, as you see there, is really rough and rusted, and how will this aerodynamic flow will happen there? That is his focus in this research. And he mapped This is the roughness, mountains and valleys is about plus minus 2.5 millimeters from the mean surface, and is kind of mapping the flow velocity profile of that laser sheet. And he studied the smooth wall versus the rough wall, and he plotted the energy spectrum for with respect to the wave number for the smooth and as well as the rough. So he found out the spectral energy density is different for both the cases, so indicating that rough surface should not be treated or modeled based on the smooth wall theory. So that's a lot more involved in that, called very large scale motion versus the small scale motion. Depending upon the flow, it indicates that rough surface, we should not be just using the smooth wall theories. And this is another one Professor Goldstein in UT Austin is doing. This is again related to a roughness textured surface. He kind of thinks that by manipulating the roughness, he can play with the boundary layer transition better and have a better control. What is shown here is the turbulence wedge. If you put a small pin or obstruction in the upstream flow, what happens downstream is what is illustrated here. This is called a turbulence wedge. Usually, the wedge spreads like a wedge, and then all the streamlines and turbulence effects are illustrated in the numerical modeling. So this study kind of studies that in depth. And the jet noise projects is again Stanford University. Professor Moyen is studying this effect. You might have heard this also from John earlier on some other contexts, the million core computation this PI has done, and this is a tremendous work mapping this jet noise. This is completely opposite of the other aerodynamic side of the transition and turbulence study, particularly with respect to noise. Here the useful effect of the aerodynamics on the front end of the vehicle, whereas the noise is a waste, unwanted outcome of our own creation. So that has to be studied and controlled as well. Here he plotted with all these calculation. He plotted the Strual number versus the power spectral density of the noise, and it kind of matched very well with the theoretical predictions, particularly the matching of the pulses, the far field noise spectrum. And he also models the rectangular. This is an unusual type of nozzle. I think Air Force is coming up with a new design with the chevrons, and this is more commercial, and also the fighter jets, and these kind of multi-flow nozzles are also coming down the road. So we can model that using this program. And the last project I want to show you is from OSU, Ohio State University, Professor Samimi and Professor Gaitonde. They are also working on the jet noise and control. Particularly here, they want to map and study this whole jet behavior with turbulence, and what they do is they put some actuators. Actuators in the sense, they put some plasma pulse, and that pulse disturbs the jet flow and then causes the turbulent structural motion like this, as simulated in this large AD simulation. And they also predict the time lag of the sound versus the fluid dynamic wave reaching the far field. So the lag time they calculate and then model this noise behavior. So, and there's some more charts on this. As you see here, a lot of computationally intense programs, and they map various controllability, and then how to reduce the noise. These are the main goals of these two researchers. And with that, I want to summarize the state-of-the-art for boundary layer predictive models are maturing. In fact, the Hypersonic Science Center observation is the same also. And only thing is they have told was the eigenfunction method they used is not very helpful. They want us to go into initial value problem type solution. And then the quiet tunnel ground tests and flight tests are very essential too. And then this portfolio, though it's new, it's just the first presentation I made here. I hope to grow this with the help of the AFOSR management. And I try to get other resources from EIP program, MURI, and other programs AFOSR has in their toolbox. So with that, I conclude. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, again, Karno.
Just, basically two questions. First, you mentioned HiFire numerous times. To elaborate as to what the objective is of that program. And then there were numerous wind tunnel tests, kind of demonstrated. Is Arnold Air still in the business? Because it seems like you're showing data from from Cologne, from DLR, from the Germans, doing the wind tunnel tests, and I thought that Arnold Air is still in the business of doing these things.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for pointing out. In fact, I ran out of time to even mention Cologne test. In fact, Professor Snyder from Purdue University, he is collaborating. He's the only JTO connection for us with the Europeans. Particularly the Germans are doing similar tests what we do, and we compare notes with them. They are doing some tests which we cannot do in our tunnels, or for not repeating the same thing what they are doing. So we are learning from them as much as we are learning ourselves here. So that is still an ongoing. In fact, next month we are meeting in Colorado. Professor Snyder is organizing with this JTO group. Many of the European guys are participating, and then most of our industry and academia are participating in particularly addressing the boundary layer transition theory and modeling and testing. And with respect to HiFire, the same thing. HiFire is a big program. I hope you know there are about 10 flights, and it's a big multi-million-dollar program. The lab is running it. We don't have anything to do with it except catching the front end of the basic science, particularly the boundary layer transition, DNS, etc. So
is that to hypersonics or HiFire or?
No, HiFire is a program name. HiFire International Flight Research Experiment. That's the name of HiFire. That's a project like HTV2 or whatever main programs. That's flight experiments particularly. So whatever flight experiments give data, we can use it, and then we can use our theoretical knowledge to pump back how the flight hardware is designed and built and launched and tested.
Do you have a question for Juan? Great.
I don't know if this is on, but I just wanted to thank everybody for the flexibility today. We're actually ending not too much later than the normal schedule, and I believe that we're scheduled to start again promptly at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So have a wonderful evening. Hopefully you'll be able to all get home safely with the remains of the snow and the ice and everything. And thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoyed our talks today.